Hi there, welcome to Triangle Minds. In today's video, we will explore the nuclear arms race. The period from the mid-20th century to the late 1980s saw one of the most intense and dangerous standoffs in human history, as the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a deadly game of one-upmanship, building up their nuclear arsenals in a race for global dominance. Now, with the topic of nuclear arms hitting recent headlines with the conflict in Europe, it seems fitting to remind ourselves of its history. The nuclear arms race was a pivotal moment in world history, and it shaped the course of international relations for decades to come. From the brinkmanship of the Cuban Missile Crisis to the terrifying specter of mutually assured destruction, this period was marked by unprecedented technological advancements, political tensions, and moral questions about the use of nuclear weapons. We will explore the key events, personalities, and consequences of the nuclear arms race, and examine how this period continues to shape our world today. So sit back, buckle up, and get ready to explore one of the most fascinating and consequential chapters in modern history. The nuclear arms race was a period of intense competition and tension between the United States and the Soviet Union that lasted from the end of World War II until the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. This arms race was characterized by a rapid escalation of nuclear weapons production, testing, and deployment by both sides, as each sought to gain a strategic advantage over the other. The origins of the nuclear arms race can be traced back to the end of World War II, when the United States became the first and only country to use nuclear weapons in warfare. The bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945 signaled a new era in global conflict, as the destructive power of nuclear weapons became apparent to the world. The decision to use atomic bombs was a complex one, and involved a number of factors that ultimately led to President Truman's decision. Here are some of the key factors that influenced the decision. The war in the Pacific was ongoing. By the summer of 1945, the war in Europe had ended, but fighting in the Pacific was still ongoing. The US had been fighting a brutal island-hopping campaign against Japan, and estimates suggested that an invasion of the Japanese mainland would result in a high number of casualties on both sides. At the time, the US had invested heavily in the development of atomic bombs through the Manhattan Project, and had successfully tested them in New Mexico in July 1945. This gave President Truman and his advisors confidence that the bombs could be used effectively in combat. We did a deep dive on the Manhattan Project in a previous video, so be sure to check that out on our channel. Now back to the video. At the time, there was a sense among some US leaders that using atomic bombs could force Japan to surrender quickly, without the need for a costly invasion. This was based on the assumption that the Japanese would be shocked by the destructive power of the bombs and would fear further attacks. Some military leaders, including General Douglas MacArthur, advocated for the use of atomic bombs as a way to end the war quickly and avoid a costly invasion. They argued that the bombs would save American lives and shorten the war. In the end, President Truman made the decision to use atomic bombs on Japan, with the bombing of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, and Nagasaki on August 9, 1945. The decision was controversial at the time and remains a subject of debate and discussion to this day. Following the war, the United States and the Soviet Union emerged as the two dominant superpowers in the world, each seeking to expand its influence and secure its strategic interests. The onset of the Cold War in the late 1940s further heightened tensions between the two nations, as they engaged in a series of proxy wars and covert operations around the world. As the Cold War escalated, both the United States and the Soviet Union began to view nuclear weapons as a critical tool for deterrence and defense. In the early years of the arms race, both sides pursued a strategy known as massive retaliation, in which each side threatened to use nuclear weapons in response to any aggression by the other. This strategy was based on the belief that the threat of mutual destruction would deter either side from launching a first strike, thus preventing a catastrophic nuclear war. However, as the arms race continued and both sides developed more sophisticated and powerful nuclear weapons, the risks of accidental or intentional nuclear war increased dramatically. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, both the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a dangerous game of one-upmanship, as each sought to develop more advanced and powerful nuclear weapons. This period saw the development of intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, MIRVs, and other advanced delivery systems that could strike targets with incredible accuracy and devastating force. By the 1970s, the nuclear arms race had become a global phenomenon, as other countries such as China, France, and the United Kingdom also began to develop their own nuclear weapons. This proliferation of nuclear weapons further increased the risks of nuclear war, as the possibility of a nuclear exchange between any number of countries became a real and present danger. In response to these growing risks, the United States and the Soviet Union began to pursue a policy of arms control and disarmament in the 1980s. This period saw the negotiation of several landmark arms control agreements, such as the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, SALT, and the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces (INF) Treaty, which helped to reduce the risks of nuclear war and limit the size of each side's nuclear arsenal. However, the end of the Cold War in 1991 did not mark the end of the nuclear arms race. Despite the significant progress made in arms control and disarmament during the previous decades, both the United States and Russia continue to maintain large and powerful nuclear arsenals to this day, and tensions between the two countries remain high. The threat of nuclear war is still a concern, and efforts to reduce nuclear stockpiles and limit the spread of nuclear weapons continue. In conclusion, the nuclear arms race was a result of a complex set of factors, including technological advancements, ideological differences, and the desire for military supremacy. The development and deployment of nuclear weapons by the US and Soviet Union created a dangerous and unstable international environment, with the constant threat of nuclear war. While arms control efforts have reduced the number of nuclear weapons in the world, the threat of nuclear war remains, and it is important for the international community to continue to work towards disarmament and non-proliferation. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content. Thanks for watching.